Achak's Jubilee, written by Richard Blackwell. Preface. The heavy tent flap lifted as a Canadian tank trooper ducked through into the large canvas tent. He scratched at his naturally smooth face. He was a young man, too young, but there was nothing strange about that in this war. He looked about him. Men laid in cots, filling up each side of the tent. An aisle in the middle was taken up by doctors and nurses bustling about. Some of the men in the cots vomited into buckets. Others were asleep. The stench was nauseating. The trooper swallowed, managing to keep his breakfast down. He removed his black beret and ran his hand nervously through his hair. He was there to see his cousin, Anthony, though to him Anthony felt more like a brother than a cousin. The sick men brought back memories of the trooper's youth. His mother laying on her deathbed coughing. His father, in despair, had decided to move away from that place, leaving his son with his wife's relatives. Fortunately, his relatives had been nice, more than nice. They had taken him in as their own. It had been a mostly pleasant upbringing. The only upset had been between him and his cousin. He and Anthony had fought in the beginning. Anthony had bullied him over his matey name, Achak. Then they fought over a chicken. Then who was the better tractor driver. And finally, as teens, over women. Well, one woman, he reflected. However, they had since reconciled, and this war had brought them closer together. Now, as troopers in the Siglunis Tank Regiment of Manitoba, they were brothers in arms. Achak saw Anthony lying on one of the cots towards the center of the tent and quickened his pace. As much as he wanted to visit his brother, he also wanted to get out of such a foul-smelling place. Anthony laid on his back, his eyes fixated on a fly that was trying to find its way out of the tent. If even a fly wants to escape, then this place must really smell bad, Achak thought. The sweat glistened on Anthony's face, and a fresh bucket of vomit was clutched between his pale hands. Achak forced a smile as he stood at the end of Anthony's cot, clutching his cap in his hands. "Tony, how are you?" "I've been better," Anthony said as he took Achak's hand and shook it warmly, though his own hand was cold. "Food poisoning. Can you believe it? Taken out most of the regiment by the looks of it. But better not let the Jerrys know." Achak nodded, grunting a response as he pulled a wooden stool over to Anthony's cot and sat down. "You're lucky you don't eat meat," Anthony continued, trying to make his brother smile. "Yeah," Achak replied solemnly. "Oh, cheer up, dear brother," Anthony said. "I'm not dying." "I've been reassigned," Achak said as he looked down at the dirt floor. Anthony scrutinized Achak's face and read the uncertainty in it. "That's great. Get some action. Which unit?" Anthony asked, trying to lift his brother's mood. "I don't know." Achak raised his head and looked over Anthony's body. "Where to?" "I don't know that either." "At least another tank regiment?" "I assume so, but you know how it is." Achak looked Anthony in the eyes, trying to reassure him. "Yeah, they never tell us much." Anthony smiled, and then he reached forward for the bucket and retched into it. Achak leant forward on the stool and held his brother's back. Anthony finished, and a nurse came and took his bucket to empty it. Achak helped Anthony lay back down on the yellow-stained pillow. "Ah, much better. But that aftertaste is horrible," Anthony said, struggling to smile. Achak reached over to the side table and gave Anthony his cup of water. Anthony took a sip and then handed it back and closed his eyes. "Don't worry about me. I'll be just fine." He smiled but kept his eyes closed. Achak looked at his sickly brother, lying under a scratchy-looking blanket, with flies buzzing around and the stench in the air. He was amazed at Anthony's optimism, despite his circumstances. Anthony opened his eyes again and turned his head to look at Achak. I'll be all right, Achak, he said, taking Achak's hand. Achak smiled at the use of his real Métis name. Though he didn't look Métis, as he had very pale white skin, inherited from his very pasty English mother, he did have dark, thick black hair and eyebrows from his father's native side, though. Only his close friends and family knew his real name, Achak. Everyone else called him Jack, a name which Anthony had started calling him when they had first met as an insult, but which Achak had turned around into something strong. Him. He was both Achak and Jack, a man of two cultures. How can you be so sure? Achak asked. Faith, Anthony smiled.